Hi. Um, it's the day before Purim, and every Purim I learn the same Torah by the Radziner Rebbe. He's the Radziner. The book is the Yesharim. It was written in somewhere between 1859 and 1889. It was Harav Gershon Leiner, who was the Radziner Rebbe. And I'm not going to go into that too much, but I want to talk about what he writes on Purim. And this is what he says. He says, "V'hinei neged elu hanhagot sheyesh l'Hashem yitbarach עתיקה וזעיר אנפין הציב השם יתברך בזה העולם שני המאורות, מאור גדול ומאור קטן." So, when Hashem created the world, He put into the world two great lights, the sun and the moon. And these two lights, they represent the two aspects of God. The way we perceive Him, not God forbid that God is separated into two different entities. The way we perceive Him is either through Atik Yamin or Zer Anpin. Atik Yamin is the eternal, unchanging aspect of God, transcendent, that we cannot really, it's all encompassing. Zer Anpin is the process-oriented, natural aspect of God. And he goes on, he says, Shem Chama Ulivana, V'hem Ramzim al Elu Shnei Hanagot. And these are the two ways in which Hashem acts in the world. V'hu ki or hamastir, or chama, zorech ora lechol hamekomot. Or the sun shines all the time, without change, every day, and it reaches everything, and it shines every single day, as opposed to the moon, which is matzinu lefamim deitkase sihara. Sometimes the moon doesn't shine. There are days when the moon waxes and wanes and even disappears. And this is sometimes the way we see Hashem acting in the world. Ki hayareach romez al or kazeh shemeir gabei ha'adam. This is the godly aspect of man acting in the world. That even though we were created b'tzelem Elokim, in the image of God, we have limited power, limited influence, limited ability, limited knowledge. Al yidei shepu'ula avodato rak ad makom sheyad avodato magat. We only can influence what we are able to reach. Aval zeh amakom she'en od bekoach avodato la'ir sham nishaer mitzido b'choshech. But there are aspects of the world that remain in darkness, remain beyond our knowledge, beyond our ability to do a tikkun, to fix. Masha'en ken or chama, but that is not the way with the sun. The sun shines everywhere, every day. And that's Atik Yamin. Shemanhir mitzad Hashem yitbarach. And that is more like the aspect of God. The Atik Yamin, the eternal aspect of God. Umitzad or kazeh lo nishar shum davar b'choshech, and nothing remains in darkness. Ki b'chol haaretz kvodo, because we know that God's influence shines on the entire world. And if there was anything in really, truly in darkness of God's light and God's influence, even for a moment, it would cease to exist. V'leit atar panui me'oro, and there's nothing that is devoid of His light. V'yesh al ze romzim ha'echad asar yom she'yamot ha'chama yiteirim al yamot ha'levana. And where do we see this? We see this that there are 11 days in the solar calendar when the sun shines but the moon does not. There are 11 days in the year when the moon does not shine. Ki ein bekoach or halevana la'ir lotan echad asar yom. The moon just does not have the strength or the ability to bring light to those 11 days. Ki echad asar more tamid alotan ha'pe'ulot. Shesham hachoshech ve'em bekoach avodato adam la'ir otam. And that hints at the 11 that man is not able to enlighten. V'lazeh hem achadasar. So the question is, why is it specifically 11 days that man cannot bring light into the world? Why is it specifically 11 days that the moon does not shine? Ki b'kedusha eta b'sefer Yetzira eser. Because we learn in Sefer Yetzira that when it comes to kedusha, the side of holiness, there are 10 sfirot, there are 10 emanations of holiness. Okay. V'lazeh hem achadasar ki b'dekushta eta b'sefer Yetzira eser v'lo achadasar. It says specifically in the Sefer Yetzira there are 10 emanations, 10 sfirot of holiness, and not 11. Why does it say not 11? Why doesn't it just say exactly 10 and no more? It says not 11 because 11 is something else. L'sitra achar yahave chushpana yetera v'ihi b'minyana b'griu kagon ashte. Well, because the side of darkness, the side of evil, the side of impurity, of tuma, has 11 sfirot. Why? It has to have 10 sfirot in order to give us free choice. Okay, pork cannot be poison. Because if pork was poison, we wouldn't have free choice. So we have 10 sfirot of kedusha, of holiness, and 10 sfirot of unholiness. So we can choose. But if it was entirely unholy, it couldn't exist, because we said nothing in reality is void of God. So the side of impurity has 10 sfirot, 10 emanations of holiness, of unholiness, The side of purity has 10 emanations of holiness. The side of impurity has 10 emanations of unholiness. But it must necessarily have one extra emanation of holiness, for without that it would not exist. So we have 10 sfirot, 10 emanations congruent to 10 emanations, 10 of holiness, 10 of impurity, to give us free will. And then the 11th emanation from the side of impurity to give it existence. It has God in it. There is the 10th emanation of holiness that is contained within the 10 emanations of unholiness. So Those 11 emanations from the side of impurity represent the 11 days of darkness that man, as the moon, cannot reach. There are 11 emanations that we cannot influence. Okay? So what are those 11 emanations? Those 11 emanations are the 11 days that the moon cannot be equal to the sun. We can't be equal to God. He shines everywhere. We are limited. We're limited like the moon. We are limited by 11 emanations of darkness. But there is a way to make the sun and the moon equal. How do we do that? We do that by adding an extra Adar, by adding an extra month into the calendar. And that's achieved in Adar, the month of Purim. And in Purim, we go to the level of Adeloyada, which most people think is a decreased level, a diminished level of man, but no. It's Adeloyada, until you don't know. You take it further, you take it to the point where you don't know, you take it beyond knowledge. On Yom Kippur, you do tshuva on what you can understand, what you know about. The Averas, God forbid, that you know that you did. The Averas that you know how to fix. But on Purim, you go further. You go to the Averas that you don't understand, the sins that you don't understand, that are too big for you, that are beyond your knowledge, that you don't know about, you don't know how to fix them. That's Adeloyada. So on Purim, we're able to fix those. We're able to rectify the sun and the moon. The sun and the moon are equal. And we can do tshuva on things that we don't normally know how to do tshuva on. And that happens only in Adar, only in the month of Adar, when we have a leap year. And that's when we can make the moon reach the 11 days that it cannot normally achieve. So Purim is when we can go further, when we can go deeper, when we can go higher, when we go where we don't even know how to go. It's beyond knowledge, it's transcendent. It's going down into the darkest darkness, where there is no sun, and pulling out the one tiny spark of holiness that God put there to allow it to exist. There are times in my life when I don't know why I was permitted to exist, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure I did. Here I am sitting here, I think, maybe. I don't know if I exist. But if I do, that means that I went to the places that were very dark indeed, and that there was no light. There was no holiness. But if there was no holiness, it couldn't exist. But I went there anyway. So I've heard the Baal Tshuva, the penitent, the returning religious person, referred to as the holy thief. We go down into the darkness where the bad people rule. And they think we're one of them. And then we party with them. And when they're not looking, we steal the light that Hashem hid there for the end of times. We steal it. And we bring it back. We're the Bilbo Baggins of the final redemption. Stealing the gem from Smog. And not all who wander are lost. And not all that glitters is gold. And I really feel like we're in the end of days, or at least I am. It's that kind of day. And we're stealing last bits of holiness, things that could never have been imagined just a very short time ago, darkness that could never have been imagined, craziness, things that no one could have ever imagined, things that no one could have been prepared to fix. And we're running down and stealing that last bit of light, the last sparks of holiness that kept those things going. And that's Purim. So thank you so much. Be blessed. And really, have an amazing Purim.